Hi everyone, welcome to my video on 5 mixed media techniques with embossing folders. This is part of the Card Maker Success Summit. So what I'm going to do is run through 5 different ideas for you to sort of extend the use of your embossing folders really. I think embossing folders are the most underrated craft product and I use them so much in my card making. And I thought I would share just a few of the sort of techniques and ideas I like to do with my embossing folders. So the first technique is very simple actually. It's just using gilding waxes with an embossed background. I've got a selection here of my kind of most used. I would say my most used are probably Sizzix waxes. The Sizzix waxes that I use most are gold and rose gold. This one here also is one it's quite a new one and I love it. It's ivory. That one's really subtle. This is the rose gold. The Sizzix waxes do come in a few other colours, but I've just grabbed a selection of a few different ones here. These are pentart. These are very similar to the Sizzix waxes actually. The gold is a very similar colour to the Sizzix gold. And I've also got a nice sort of bright green here. And this one I think is an olive sort of green, and then I've also got, I'm just going to grab it, a nice sort of teal blue. So these are really nice as well, and they give a really sort of pearlescent finish. Then the other waxes I like to use, and actually I probably started using these before all of the others, and these are the Prima waxes. These come in a variety of different finishes. You've got opalescence, that's these, where they look kind of white almost, or cream, but they've got like an interference type shimmer. So I've got a couple of those that I use a lot. Then I've got, I'm just going to show you this one actually. This is a Sizzix one, but this is also sort of an interference one. It's like a violet. The interference ones I find work best on dark cardstock. Then Prima have a really nice sort of metallic. This one I think it's white gold. And then I've got a bronze one. These are probably my most used. Really nice sort of, they're subtle. They're not too shimmery, the metallics in Prima I find. And then they've got some really different sort of finishes. This one is a white, which actually I do use quite a lot. You would think white was a bit boring, but actually on craft card and different finishes it's really nice. Then these are very much a pearlescent, and they're really quite bright. They've almost got an interference to them as well. Very shimmery. And I've got that lovely sort of bluey green and then this vibrant purple. So that's just a selection. I would recommend all of these though. These are all products that I've had a long time. All of them at least a couple of years, and none of them have dried out yet. So I'm really happy with all of these brands. So I'm just going to run through an embossing folder with a black and a light green cardstock, just so we've got two different sort of bases to have a play with the waxes. I definitely wanted a black for the more iridescent type finishes, so we can have a play with those. So for the black cardstock, I'm going to go in with the Prima waxes. This is that lovely bright green, sort of pearlescent shimmery one. And then this one is green brocade. So it looks sort of white or cream in the packaging, but it's got a lovely greeny gold shimmer to it. And then this is the Sizzix one, which is that really sort of, it's got a real violet colour to it on black. But interestingly, if you put that on white, it's more just of a pearlescent finish. So now on the light green, I'm going to go in with, this is the Sizzix Luster Wax in gold. And you'll notice I'm using an ink blending tool for that one. Sometimes with my waxes, when they're in the jars, like these pentart and the Sizzix ones, I quite like to just use an ink blending tool because it goes smoothly over the top. And then the last metallic one is one of the Prima sort of bronze colours. So I've got 3 sort of metallic type of golds over this light green. And then you can see the different effects on the different colour cardstocks there. So the next technique we're going to look at is acrylic paint. I'm using Sizzix acrylic paint because I've got the biggest selection in the Sizzix colours. Also, the Sizzix paint in particular is very flexible, so you can run it through an embossing folder without it cracking. If you're using other types of paint, just experiment. Some you'll find will crack, some you'll find will work, but it's just all about experimenting. However, if you've got any of the Sizzix paints, I know they work beautifully with embossing. So I've got a nice bright blue, I think it's called Arctic blue, and then I've got a sort of darker teal, which is called agave. And I'm just dry brushing some onto the cardstock. I've gone with a light green cardstock, and I'm just adding a little bit in the background. I'm dry brushing it on, which is going to give me the kind of brush marks on it. If you want more of a smoother finish, you can use a brayer to do the same technique. It'll just give you a smoother sort of colour blend in the background. I would recommend trying both. I just didn't do both on this video because we are going to use the brayer and other techniques, and I didn't want it to be a bit repetitive. But by all means, have a go with both dry brushing and brayering these two background colours on, and you'll see the difference. So I've given that a quick blast with my heat tool just to dry that off, and I've spritzed the back so I don't reactivate the paint, and I'm running that through. I'm sorry, I've got my Big Shot just off camera, but it's easier to just do that than keep bringing it in and out. So now I'm just adding a bit of gold acrylic paint to my mat. This again is Sizzix paint. You can use any acrylic paint for this part because we're brayering it on. We've already done the embossing, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a really flexible paint. Any nice shimmery, pearlescent or metallic paint you've got will work really nicely for this. And I'm just brayering some of the colour over the top. And because obviously my brayer's flat, it's just picking up the absolute highlights of that embossed detail. And I think the metallic gold just looks beautiful with that sort of blue and green in the background. It really makes the gold pop. So the next technique starts off the same as the last one, in that we're going to use some acrylic paint. I've got some green cardstock, and what I'm going to do is go in with some light green. This is called green tea. I'm still using Sizzix acrylic paints because I know these are going to work well with the embossing folders and not crack. So I've got green tea and agave, which is like a light green, and then that teal colour we used last time. And I'm doing the same as before. I'm going in with a dry brush, and I'm just going to put a bit of colour in the background. And again, with this technique, if you prefer to use a brayer to just put some colour in the background, by all means you could do that as well. You will get a sort of smoother look with a brayer, whereas you can kind of see the brush marks here in this one. But I quite like that. But definitely have a play around with both, see which you prefer. And I'm giving that a quick dry with my heat tool because I have dry brushed it on. It's not sort of soaking wet, so it doesn't take long to just give it a quick blast. And then I'm just wiping off my mat so I don't get paint everywhere. And then I'm going to quickly run that through with the embossing folder. I will put in the description box the details of all the embossing folders I'm using, because I realise I'm not kind of saying the names as I go, but I will put all the info in the description box so you can have a look. So I could go over this with luster wax or acrylic paint like we've done before, but I wanted to show you a different idea. So these are foundry waxes. These are Distress Ranger Distress products by Tim Holtz. The colours I've got are Sterling, which is the silver, Mind, which is like a sort of coppery rose gold, Gilded is the proper gold colour, and then Statue is more like a bronze. So I'm going in with, I think I've got the Gilded, which is the proper gold, and then the Mind, which is more of a sort of rose gold coppery colour. And all I've done is squirted a bit onto my mat, and then I'm just using a paintbrush to sort of apply here and there. Now this really doesn't look anything at this point, and sometimes I look, you know, at this point I'm thinking, oh dear, have I ruined this, because this all looks a bit flat. But keep going. The thicker you put this on, the more effect you'll get, so don't sort of almost dry brush it, go in quite heavy. You do want quite a good coating of this, and you also do want to wipe it off your mat straight away. I find with luster waxes and all of these sort of products, if you're using a silicone mat, unless you wipe it off straight away, you're then going to need to use like an alcohol wipe to get it off. So I do try and keep in the habit of wiping it off straight away. So once I've cleaned my background, we're ready for the next step, and that's to bring in my heat tool. And you'll instantly see how amazing this is once you heat it up. So it's almost like an embossing powder in that it kind of melts, but it's already liquid to start with. It's a very strange product, but it's a really lovely effect. And it is a different effect to the gilding waxes or embossing powders. It's a really nice sort of shiny metallic. I feel it's more shiny than an embossing powder would be, and it's more, I don't know, a thicker coating, kind of more luxurious than say a wax would be. It's something in between the two. So just a nice different effect, and against a sort of dark background it looks quite dramatic and opulent. So really love that effect. And for the next technique, we're using inks for the background. So we're going to be using oxide ink pads. I've gone for 3 colours, but you'll see actually I only end up using 2 really. So I'm starting off, I've got some white watercolour card, which is going to fit my card front. And then I'm starting off with speckled egg. My initial idea was to go in with a light blue, then a turquoise into a dark blue. But after putting this on, you'll see in a second, I kind of abandoned the idea of the speckled egg. I just felt it was too light. So the middle colour is Salvage Patina, and then this is Faded Jeans, this really dark colour. At this point, I feel like that light blue is just not dramatic enough. So I'm just going to do more of the dark and the turquoise colours. So that's going to be a nice background. I'm spritzing it with water because these are oxide inks. I can sort of get a bleached effect by sprinkling on a bit of water and then dabbing it off with a kitchen towel. It won't be massively noticeable because by the time we emboss and add something else to this, but nonetheless I quite like just that little effect. So I'm going to run that through my Big Shot, and then I'll just quickly get all that ink off my mat. And then again, the embossed detail, once you colour the background, is kind of lost a little bit. So what I've got to try with this one is Sizzix Pearlescent Medium. This is a very shimmery paste. It's got a lovely pearlescent finish. You can colour it if you want to add different effects. It's water-based, so you could use your re-inkers to colour it. You can use your acrylic paints to mix with it, mica powders, all sorts, and it will still give you a lovely sort of pearlescent finish. So I've just put some on my mat, and then I'm going to use a small brayer just to go over the top and pick out the design. And it gives it a lovely sort of pearly shimmer. So my last technique is kind of back to basics really, after all those shimmery, pearly, different effects. This is very much my go-to for sort of Nordic style Christmassy type cards. I'm just using craft card and I'm embossing it straight away. I'm not adding anything to the card before I emboss this time. And then I'm very simply going to grab some white gesso. If you're using gesso, make sure it's a good quality one that has a good opaque finish. There's nothing worse for this technique than using a cheap one that is kind of a bit transparent and not nice and bright white. If you don't have gesso, white acrylic paint will do the same thing. Either will do. And all you're going to do is just brayer it over and it's going to pick up the design. You do want to pick an embossing folder that's got a good amount of sort of raised areas, because that's the only bits that are going to sort of pick up the white. But this particular one is just perfect for this style. And just perfect for a Christmas card. So that's all 5 techniques for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I hope you're enjoying the summit too. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you soon. Bye.